You have stared at a ceiling and felt time slow down to almost nothing. You have sat in a room with everything you need and still felt a hollow, restless ache that you could not name or fix. You have picked up your phone, put it down, picked it up again, scrolled without reading anything, set it face down, and then immediately turned it back over. Not because something changed, but because your brain refused to simply be still. That feeling has a name. It is boredom. And it is one of the strangest, most misunderstood experiences in all of human psychology. Here's what almost nobody tells you. No other animal on Earth gets bored the way you do. A dog waiting for its owner is not bored. A crow perched on a wire is not bored. A chimpanzee sitting in the shade is not bored. They may be resting, they may be alert, they may even be frustrated. But the specific, aching, self-aware dissatisfaction you feel when nothing feels worth doing, that is yours alone. The question is why? Why did evolution build this into you? What purpose could restlessness possibly serve? And why, in a world more stimulating than any that has ever existed, does boredom feel worse than ever? The answer reaches back further than you would expect, and it changes everything about how you understand your own mind. Start with what boredom actually is, because most people have it wrong. Boredom is not simply the absence of stimulation. If it were, putting you in a sensory deprivation tank would be the most boring experience imaginable. But research shows that sensory deprivation produces something more like terror and hallucination, not boredom. The brain, stripped of all input, does not go quiet. It generates its own chaos. Boredom is something far more specific. Psychologist John Eastwood at York University spent years studying boredom and arrived at a definition that flipped common assumptions on their head. Boredom, he found, is not a lack of things to do. It is the failure to engage attention with something that feels meaningful. You can be in the middle of a crowd and be bored. You can have 100 options in front of you and be bored. The problem is not the world around you. The problem is the disconnect between your attention and your sense of purpose. Your brain is running a constant background process. It is always asking one question. Is what you are doing right now worth your mental resources? When the answer keeps coming back as no. When nothing feels worth reaching for, boredom switches on like an alarm. A loud, uncomfortable, impossible to ignore alarm. And that alarm, strange as it sounds, was once the most important signal in your ancestors' lives. Think about where your brain was built. Not in an office, not in a classroom, not in front of a screen. Your brain was built over hundreds of thousands of years on the African savanna, in a world where the single most important survival skill was knowing where to invest your energy. Anthropologist John Tooby at the University of California, Santa Barbara, spent decades studying how evolutionary pressures shape the modern human mind. His work points to something called the opportunity cost system, a deep neural mechanism that is constantly calculating whether what you are doing right now is the best possible use of your time and energy. In the ancestral environment, that calculation had life or death stakes. A hunter who stayed by a dry riverbed while better hunting grounds existed to the north would starve. A forager who kept picking a depleted berry bush instead of searching for a new one would go hungry. Sitting still when something better was available was not just inefficient, it was fatal. Boredom was the feeling that made sure that never happened. When your brain sensed that your current activity was low value and that something better probably existed somewhere else, it generated that restless, dissatisfied pull. It made inaction feel intolerable. It forced you to move, to seek, to explore. Boredom was not a malfunction. It was a compass. This is why the sensation is so physically uncomfortable. Your brain did not want you to sit with it. It wanted you to do something about it. The discomfort was the point. And here is where it gets genuinely strange. Because this same mechanism, this ancient, hunger-like drive to seek something better, is the engine behind almost everything that makes humans remarkable. Philosopher Andreas Elpidoru at the University of Louisville has argued something that sounds almost absurd at first. Boredom is the engine of civilization. Not curiosity, not intelligence, not ambition. Boredom, because curiosity on its own is passive. You can be curious and still not act. But boredom is physically uncomfortable. It demands a response. It forces the hand. Every time an ancestral human felt that hollow restlessness and went out to explore a new valley, or tried a new tool-making technique, or started telling a story around a fire to make the evening feel less empty, boredom was there, pushing, insisting, refusing to let well enough alone. The arts, science, exploration, philosophy, religion, all of these required someone to sit with the burning feeling that there must be something more and refuse to let it go unanswered. Your boredom is not a character flaw. It is an inheritance. But here is the twist. Because the same system that drove your ancestors to explore new territories is now misfiring badly in the modern world. Your brain was built for an environment of scarcity. Stimulation was rare. When something interesting happened, it was worth paying close attention to, because interesting things were precious. Your attention system evolved to be lean, to hold still for things that mattered, to ignore things that did not. Now look at your life. Every second of every day, your phone alone contains more stimulation than your ancestors encountered in a year. Algorithmically optimized content designed specifically to hijack the attention system your brain evolved to protect itself with. Notifications, infinite scroll, autoplay, outrage cycles. Your brain is not equipped for this. Not yet. Evolution works on a timescale of tens of thousands of years. And the smartphone has existed for less than 20. What happens when an ancient seeking mechanism meets infinite artificial stimulation? You get what psychologist Sandy Mann at the University of Central Lancashire calls a boredom paradox. The more stimulation you consume, the higher your threshold climbs. Your brain recalibrates. It demands more. Things that once felt engaging now feel flat. Real life, quiet, slow, undramatic real life, starts to feel unbearably dull by comparison. You are not more easily bored because you are weaker than your ancestors. You are more easily bored because your brain seeking system is being flooded in a way it was never designed to handle, and the instinct to reach for your phone whenever boredom appears. That is the ancient compass spinning in circles. It registers the discomfort. It demands action. But the action it finds is not a new valley or a new idea. It is a scroll. And 30 seconds later, the discomfort returns, slightly worse than before. This is what makes modern boredom a trap. The tool that was supposed to push you toward meaning keeps pointing toward the nearest dopamine source instead. But here is what the research actually says you can do about this. Eastwood's work found something remarkable. The people who cope best with boredom are not the ones who immediately reach for distraction. They are the ones who have learned to sit with the discomfort long enough to let it do its actual job. Because boredom, when you do not immediately kill it, becomes a signal you can read. It tells you what your brain thinks is missing. The restlessness points somewhere. It is asking a question. What actually matters to you? What would feel worth doing right now if the phone were gone, if the screens were dark, if it were just you in the world? Most people never hear the answer because they never give the question enough silence to speak. Your ancestors had no choice but to listen. They had no phones, no algorithm. When boredom came, there was nothing to do but sit with it until a genuine answer surfaced. A real direction, a real goal, a real thing worth moving toward. That is still what boredom is trying to give you. A direction, a push. The ancient systems in your brain are not broken. They are simply pointed at the wrong targets. And the moment you stop feeding the discomfort with the nearest available distraction and let yourself actually feel it, let yourself sit in it the way your ancestors had no choice but to sit in it, something shifts. The compass starts working again. You have stared at a ceiling and felt time slow to almost nothing. But that slowness is not emptiness. It is your brain holding very still, waiting to find out what actually matters to you. It has been waiting with extraordinary patience for a very long time.